Have you ever felt like true happiness is just always out of reach? Like you're chasing something and it never seems to fully arrive.
Yeah.
Well, in this deep dive, we're going to explore The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, interesting.
And this book offers a really compelling perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe the key to lasting peace and fulfillment is not chasing external things,
Okay.
but embracing the present moment.
Right. That's right.
Like, what if this moment, the one we're in right now, is all we ever really have?
Yeah, Tolle really challenges us to consider that. Everything we need for a fulfilling life is already here. He uses a powerful analogy to illustrate this. Imagine a beggar sitting on a box
Okay.
for 30 years,
Wow.
completely unaware that it's overflowing with gold.
Oh, okay, I see. So he's so focused on, like, begging for scraps that he doesn't even realize the treasure he's literally sitting on.
Exactly. And that beggar represents many of us. We often search for happiness and security outside ourselves.
Yeah.
In possessions, achievements, or relationships, while neglecting the immense power and peace that resides within.
So we're all potentially sitting on a gold mine of inner peace.
Yes.
But how do we even begin to access that?
That's where the concept of presence comes in.
Okay.
Tolle argues that our true nature, what he calls being, is a state of pure consciousness, free from the constraints of time and the ego's constant chatter. It's in this state of presence that we tap into the true source of joy.
And fulfillment. This brings to mind a question I often ponder. If the present moment is all we ever truly have, why do our minds constantly pull us away from it?
Well, Tolle suggests that our minds, dominated by the ego, create a false sense of self that's rooted in past experiences and anxieties about the future. He shares an anecdote about Carl Jung. Jung observed that white people always seemed restless and uneasy, like something was missing.
So they're missing out on the peace that comes with fully inhabiting the present moment. I can totally relate to that feeling.
Yeah.
I often find myself dwelling on past mistakes or worrying about what might happen, like what if this happens or what if that happens.
Yeah, that's the ego at work,
Right.
keeping us trapped in a cycle of suffering. Tolle suggests that two major obstacles keep us from experiencing the now.
Okay.
The first is what he calls the pain body,
The pain body.
accumulated emotional pain from our past that we carry with us unconsciously.
Is this similar to the idea of holding on to resentment and bitterness?
Yeah.
It feels like I'm dragging around baggage I don't even realize is there.
Precisely. The pain body feeds off those negative emotions, keeping us stuck in a cycle of suffering. Instead of dwelling in those feelings, Tolle encourages us to become aware of the pain body
Okay.
and make a conscious choice to release it.
That makes sense. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we respond to it in the present. So what's the second obstacle?
It's our identification with the egoic mind, which constantly seeks to maintain its sense of self through external validation and control. This creates a constant feeling of lack and insecurity, preventing us from experiencing the fullness of the present moment.
So instead of finding fulfillment from within, we're constantly chasing external things to fill a perceived void.
Exactly. And this pursuit keeps us trapped in a cycle of wanting and striving, never fully satisfied. Tolle challenges us to recognize these patterns and shift our focus from the egoic mind to the present moment.
This all feels very profound.
Yeah.
But how do we actually make that shift? Like, how do we quiet the mental chatter and tap into that deeper state of being?
That's where Tolle introduces practices like mindfulness and self-observation,
Okay.
which we'll explore more deeply in the next part of our deep dive.
So mindfulness and self-observation, those are the keys to quieting the ego
Yeah.
and tapping into the power of now. How do those practices actually work in our everyday lives?
Well, mindfulness, it's about cultivating a heightened awareness of the present moment without judgment. It's about paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations without getting, carried away by them.
So it sounds like becoming an observer of our own internal experience.
Right.
But how do we develop that kind of awareness?
Well, Tolle suggests starting with simple practices,
Yep.
like focusing on our breath. Notice the sensation of each inhale and exhale. Or bring your attention to the sounds around you, the chirping of birds, the hum of traffic.
So instead of letting my mind wander, I can anchor it to something tangible in the present moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that. It feels very grounding.
Exactly. Even something as mundane as washing the dishes can become a mindfulness practice.
Okay.
Pay attention to the feel of the water, the scent of the soap, the movements of your hands.
It's like turning everyday tasks into opportunities to practice presence.
Right?
What about self-observation? How does that differ from mindfulness?
Self-observation goes a step further. It's about becoming aware of the thoughts and the patterns that drive our behavior.
Right.
Tolle suggests imagining yourself as a witness to your own thoughts, observing them without judgment or attachment.
So instead of identifying with my thoughts like I'm so stressed or I'm a failure, I can simply observe them as mental events passing through my awareness.
Precisely. This allows us to create a space between our thoughts and our true selves, weakening the ego's grip.
Okay.
As we become more aware of our thought patterns, we can start to choose more empowering thoughts that align with the reality we want to create.
Okay, this is all starting to make sense.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how do these principles apply to relationships? Can presence really transform how we connect with others?
Absolutely. Tolle dedicates a significant portion of the power of now to exploring what he calls enlightened relationships.
Enlightened relationship.
Yeah, they're rooted in presence and acceptance, rather than neediness and dependency.
Okay, I'm all ears. How do these enlightened relationships differ from, the typical romantic relationships we see portrayed in movies and TV shows?
Tolle suggests that most relationships are based on what he calls egoic love, which is driven by a desire to possess and control the other person. It often stems from a sense of lack within ourselves, a need to find someone to complete us.
You mentioned earlier that we often look for external things to fill a void.
Right.
Seems like that applies to relationships as well.
Absolutely. We may unconsciously seek out partners who fit a certain mold or fulfill specific needs, rather than connecting with them as they truly are.
So how do we move from egoic love to enlightened love?
It starts with cultivating presence within ourselves. The more present we are, the more capable we are of truly seeing and accepting our partners without judgment or expectation.
It sounds like this level of acceptance is crucial for healthy relationships. I mean, we all have flaws after all.
Exactly. Enlightened love is about embracing the totality of a person, flaws and all.
Right.
It's about recognizing that our partners are on their own journeys, just as we are.
This makes me think of a quote from Tolle. He says, "Love is not a matter of finding the right person, but of seeing the person you find with new eyes."
That's a beautiful way to put it. Enlightened love is about letting go of our preconceived notions and seeing our partners with fresh eyes, appreciating them for who they are in this very moment.
This is making me realize how much I've projected my own expectations and insecurities onto past relationships. It's as if I was trying to fit them into a mold rather than accepting them for who they were.
That's a common experience. Tolle suggests that one of the greatest gifts we can give in relationships is the gift of presence. When we are truly present with our partners, we create a space for deep connection and intimacy to flourish.
This all sounds wonderful in theory, but I have a feeling it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Relationships can be messy. How do we maintain this level of presence when we're dealing with, like conflict or hurt feelings?
That's where the practice of surrender comes in.
Surrender.
It's about letting go of our need to control or change our partners and accepting them and the situation as they are.
Surrender. I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure I fully understand it. Is it about giving up or becoming passive in the relationship?
Not at all. Surrender is about consciously accepting what is, without resistance or judgment.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we can't control other people or force them to change.
So instead of trying to manipulate or control our partners, we choose to accept them and the situation as it is.
Precisely. This doesn't mean we have to agree with everything they do or say.
Right.
It's about choosing to respond with awareness and compassion, rather than reacting from a place of fear or anger.
Okay, this is all starting to click for me. It's like acceptance is the foundation for a truly loving and supportive relationship. It allows us to create space for each other to grow and evolve without feeling threatened or insecure.
That's beautifully said. And that brings us to another important aspect of Tolle's teachings, the difference between happiness and peace. He suggests that many of us confuse the two.
Okay, I'm curious. How are happiness and peace different? Aren't they essentially the same thing?
Not quite. While happiness is often fleeting and conditional based on external circumstances, peace is a deeper, more enduring state of being.
So if I get a promotion at work, or my favorite sports team wins a game, I might experience a surge of happiness, but those feelings are likely to fade and circumstances change.
Exactly. Happiness is often dependent on external factors. Peace, on the other hand, is an inner state that's not dependent on external conditions. It's a sense of stillness and contentment that comes from being present and accepting of whatever is happening in this moment.
This makes me think of that story Tolle shares about the old man on his deathbed. Despite his pain, he seemed to radiate a sense of deep peace and acceptance.
That's a powerful illustration of how peace can exist even amidst difficult circumstances. Tolle suggests that peace is available to us in every moment, regardless of what's happening around us.
It's like peace is an inner resource we can tap into, even when things are tough. But how do we cultivate that kind of inner peace? Sounds almost, mystical.
It's actually more practical than you might think. Tolle suggests that cultivating peace begins with becoming aware of the thoughts and emotions that disturb our inner stillness.
So instead of getting swept away by anxiety or anger, we simply observe those feelings without judgment.
Exactly. The more we practice observing our thoughts and emotions without getting attached to them, the less power they have to disturb our inner peace.
This is making me think about all the times I've let my emotions run wild. Getting caught up in drama and negativity, it's like I was giving away my power to those thoughts and feelings.
That's a common experience. Tolle reminds us that we have the power to choose our response to any situation. We can choose to react with fear and anger, or we can choose to respond with presence and peace.
It sounds like cultivating inner peace is an ongoing practice, a conscious choice we make in each moment.
Precisely. It's about shifting our focus from the external world to our inner world, recognizing that true peace can only be found within.
This is giving me a lot to reflect on, but I'm also feeling a bit overwhelmed. How do we actually integrate all these teachings into our daily lives? It feels like a lot to take in.
That's a valid point. Tolle acknowledges that integrating these concepts takes time and practice. He offers a number of practical tips and techniques in The Power of Now that can help us apply these principles to our everyday lives.
That's great news. I'm eager to hear more about those practical techniques. I think our listeners would benefit from some concrete tools they can use to cultivate presence and peace in their own lives.
Absolutely. We'll delve into those practical tips in the final part of our deep dive.
You mentioned that Tolle offers some practical techniques for integrating the power of now into our lives.
Right.
What are some of those techniques?
Well, one of the most fundamental practices Tolle emphasizes is cultivating presence through our senses. This means bringing our full attention to the sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and physical sensations of our immediate experience.
So instead of rushing through my morning routine on autopilot, I might, pause to really savor the taste of my coffee.
Exactly.
Or notice the warmth of the sun on my skin.
Yeah, it's about shifting our focus from the mental chatter to the richness of our sensory experience. Tolle suggests that even a few moments of conscious sensory awareness can bring us back to the present moment and interrupt those habitual patterns of thinking that keep us stuck in the past or future.
Right. I can see how that would be helpful. When I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, I often find myself, dwelling on things I can't control.
Yeah.
Bringing my attention to my senses seems like a good way to, ground myself in the present.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Another powerful technique Tolle suggests is using our breath as an anchor for presence. Throughout the day, simply take a few moments to notice the sensation of your breath as it enters and leaves your body.
Okay.
You don't have to change your breathing in any way. Just observe it with gentle awareness.
This reminds me of those mindfulness exercises where you focus on your breath to calm your mind. It seems like a very accessible way to practice presence throughout the day.
It is. You can practice this while you're waiting in line, riding the bus, or even in the middle of a stressful meeting. Just a few conscious breaths can help to create a sense of space and stillness within.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try that. Are there any other techniques that Tolle recommends?
He also emphasizes the importance of questioning our thoughts. Often, we take our thoughts at face value, believing everything our minds tell us. But Tolle suggests that many of our thoughts are just recycled patterns from the past or anxieties about the future, not necessarily reflections of reality.
So instead of blindly believing every thought that pops into my head, I should step back and ask myself, is this thought really true? Is it serving me?
Exactly. By questioning our thoughts, we can start to detach from those negative or limiting beliefs that keep us feeling stuck.
That's a powerful idea. It's like we're taking back control of our minds instead of letting our thoughts control us.
Precisely. And as we become more aware of our thoughts, we can start to choose more empowering thoughts that align with the reality we want to create.
This brings to mind another concept that Tolle talks about, the importance of accepting what is. He emphasizes that true peace comes from surrendering to the present moment, even when it's not what we want it to be. But how can we possibly accept things like loss, pain, or disappointment?
Tolle acknowledges that acceptance doesn't mean we have to like or condone unpleasant situations. It simply means recognizing that what is happening without resistance or judgment.
So it's about acknowledging the reality of the situation without, adding an extra layer of suffering through our resistance.
Exactly. When we resist what is, we create more tension and turmoil within ourselves. But when we surrender to the present moment, even when it's painful, we open ourselves to a deeper level of peace and acceptance.
This makes me think about that story of the old man on his deathbed. Despite his physical pain, he seemed to radiate a sense of serenity and acceptance. It's like he had surrendered to the reality of the situation and found peace within that surrender.
That's a beautiful example, and it highlights the transformative power of acceptance. When we let go of our resistance to what is, we free up energy that can be used for healing and growth.
This has been such an insightful exploration of the power of now. I feel like I've gained a deeper understanding of Tolle's teachings and how they can be applied to everyday life.
It's been a pleasure diving into these concepts with you.
Yeah, likewise.
And remember, this is just a starting point. Tolle's book is a treasure trove of wisdom that can support you on your journey towards greater presence and peace.
As we wrap up our deep dive into the power of now, why don't we leave our listeners with a final thought? What if, instead of constantly seeking happiness in the future, we focus on cultivating peace in the present moment? What if we recognized that everything we need for a fulfilling life is already available to us, right here, right now?
That's a beautiful invitation. I encourage you to explore that question and discover the transformative power of embracing the present moment.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the power of now. Until next time, keep diving deep.